all is good.
Good.
So you can see people are starting to join in the session at the top. So yeah, so wonderful. A big thank you to everyone for joining this, our second session of the day. Very welcome, a very warm welcome to Julia Kaidalova, who's going to be doing our next presentation of the day. Really, really looking forward to this one, all about designing belonging. So thank you so much for joining us today, Julia, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Philip, for having me. Very nice to see so many people joining. And today I will talk about designing belonging and, basically attracting more women to architectural teams, but the main purpose is to build great architectural teams. I think that's the ultimate end result that companies would like to achieve with that. And it has to do with inclusion, and it starts with very early on how you design your recruitment process. So I will give a couple of tips and tricks regarding how you should think around your recruitment when recruiting into architectural teams, enterprise architecture, business architecture, all sorts of architectural teams. As Philip mentioned, I'm a demand architect at Vattenfall Group. Vattenfall is an energy company, European energy company, originally Swedish. Today we operate in other countries as well. A lot of electricity sales in Nordics, but also in other countries such as Netherlands, UK, and so on. Today, I'm going to talk about belonging as a concept, so how we define it in a team. Why should companies bother, and why should enterprise architecture teams bother? I will unpack that question for those who are maybe still skeptical or need some extra evidence on why is it important to design belonging in the teams. And what can companies do to go beyond we do not get any female applicants? Because this is what I hear quite often when I talk to fellow architects and hiring managers of architectural teams, is that we would like to recruit more women maybe, but we don't get any female applicants. So practical suggestions, what can you do to tackle that question? A little bit about my journey. So my background is a software developer. So I have a bachelor's in information system development from back in the days, basically not coding any longer for many years. But I used to code to some extent, and my passion was always on making sure that the IT systems are supporting user needs. And that's why I pursued my master degree. And then after that, PhD that was focusing on enterprise architecture. So basically bridging the gap between business processes and strategies, making sure that the IT systems and digital solutions that we have in place are supporting those business processes and strategies. So my PhD thesis was focusing on the bimodal IT governance and enterprise architecture. When I say enterprise architecture, I of course mean Archimate. I know that's like one of the most common methods for representing architectural views of the enterprise. So that was my main focus in my PhD project. And I've been working as an enterprise architect and business architect, so depending on how you define it, with a number of areas. So application portfolio management, managing the IT systems catalog for a company, then business capability mapping, making sure that those IT systems are supporting the prioritized business capabilities, master data management, data cataloging and governance, and Of course, the topic that was very close to my heart was always diversity and inclusion in enterprise architecture universe. So many times I was the only woman in the room, and that was a little bit of the driver for me, that why I wanted to work with this topic and help companies to build more inclusive teams also. Great, and as you already heard, I have a background in the research world, so I always start with the definitions. And first things first, what is the diversity? And I found one very nice definition showing us like the key aspects of this concept. So we have a distribution of differences among the member of a unit with respect to a common attribute. And most common attributes today that are used in the diversity research are gender, age, personality type. There are, of course, more, but those are the most commonly used aspects. And then after we define diversity, we, of course, have to define inclusion, right? So we need to make sure that we effectively manage the diversity as soon as we manage to employ candidates with a different, let's say, gender, age, personality type, so on. We need to make sure that those differences between employees are embraced and that they are contributing to organizational performance in the efficient way, right? So that's how we form the concept of belonging. Need to make sure that different opinions are spoken freely in the meetings, need to ensure that minor groups who have the psychological safety to speak up if they think differently and so on. So psychological safety is quite a fundamental concept when it comes to belonging. And some of the disclaimers today when I will be talking about this topic, I would like to, from the start, say that diversity and inclusion is not about tokenism, and it has to do with how many times when discussing this topic in different forums and conferences, I heard the question, does this mean we have to employ the person just because they represent group X? No, the answer is very simple. It's not about that. Diversity and inclusion is a much broader topic. It's not about just employing someone. It's a set of action that has to do about making sure that this person feels belonging in the team. And also one more trigger alert. So in the numbers and statistics that I present, I sometimes use research and, different statistical figures. And of course, in that case, they show some sort of generalization across different groups. And it doesn't mean that representatives of certain groups are all the same. So it's just generalization that we can use in order to navigate a little bit more in the world of diversity and inclusion. So that's also another kind of disclaimer I wanted to give before diving into this topic. Yes, and very important question, why bother? I hope that I'm preaching to the choir, and I know that most of the companies today already know why diversity and inclusion is important. Just in case some of you still would like to know how to build a business case for this topic, I brought a couple of examples, very illustrative and very fundamental in this area. So the first one has to do with the statistics that is related to injuries in the car crash and a little bit of the historical perspective on that. So there is a statistic that says that 47% there is a likelihood that women will get seriously injured than men, almost 47%, and she's also 17% more likely to die. And this is a very sad statistic that is related to how car crash tests has been historically designed. So you can see that on the picture, this car crash dummy, that in this industry, they started to be used in 1950. But it's not until 1980 when a research group in the US have noticed that this dummy does not represent the whole population of the drivers. So basically only representing average male body versus female body. And that's when they suggested to use also female dummies in the car crash tests. But this was not introduced as a regulation up until 2011. So this is basically, you just can see this timeline and you understand that it takes time to really change the way things are done in different industry, because it takes time to come up with the regulations and to change them. And something that is very obvious today took actually almost half of the century to implement. So that's one of the very fundamental case for how inclusion and diversity matters in the any sort of industry, and in this case for manufacturing, car manufacturing. And then there are also more recent cases of, for example, soap dispensers that wouldn't react to people of color, and iPhone face unlock, the function that is very common and obvious today, but was not working for people of color and a different race in 2017. So basically, we just understand that the less diversity we have in the workplace environment, the more likely the products and services that we design will have a major design flaws, right? So if we would have a person who would be able to test their product already when it's designed as a prototype, and if the set of users who is testing it in the early stages would be different and would be diverse, there is much lower likelihood that this would happen. So main bottom line is that diversity and inclusion allows companies to create better products and services. And we, of course, have a numerous research that suggests different sort of benefits for diversity and inclusion. So better and faster decisions, increased productivity and flexibility, organizational success, and so on. And when it comes to enterprise architecture, I think it connects a little bit to the communication that the previous speaker has mentioned. So being able to translate what enterprise architecture or business architecture team does into understandable language. Here we have one perception on the statistics. So only 15% of architects are women. And then we have a very interesting study that analyzed a large group of startup and entrepreneurs pitching their business idea. Very interesting analysis based on the linguistical patterns that the entrepreneurs had, basically coming up with a conclusion that men speak more abstractly and much more skilled to describe strategy and high-level roadmaps, whereas women entrepreneurs in the sample of this test were very much skilled to come up with a specific example of how their products and services will solve specific problems for the users. So it was quite a clear difference in the how two groups use different language patterns. And then if you add into this equation the last one, the third part, when EA teams actually struggle to communicate architectural value to the company, I think it becomes very obvious, and it's just yet another reason to make sure that architectural teams are built and designed with a diversity in mind. Yes, and what can we do about that? So, how can we address this issue, and how can we go beyond? We do not get any female applicants, because this is what I many times heard from enterprise architecture hiring managers saying that, well, we would like, but we don't have any female applicants. And there is no straight, simple answer. I think it can be addressed through number of work streams, number of activities. And it starts with recruitment, how you design your recruitment, how you formulate your job description. Then it has to do with communication and branding of architect roles, and of course about diversity and inclusion training for the colleagues that you have in the team. Looking a little bit closer into recruitment. So it starts with thinking, how can we reach to a more diverse set of candidates, right? So being able to reach a larger pool of candidates is beneficial, very beneficial in this case, because in that in the moment when you just speak to the experienced enterprise architects who worked for 20, 30 years in the field, you are speaking to like smaller group of candidates. When you enlarge your scope and you also create job advertisement that is more appealing for other profiles from the IT field. So, for example, product owners, test leads, solution architects, you would be able to get a larger set of candidates who would apply for this job. How can you do this? You can go from abstract to more concrete description. And here, I think a very good example of what you can add in the job description is you can add a usual week at work. So how does a usual week at work looks like for you? So you meet your business stakeholders, you discuss what data and information is required for migrating from old system to a new system. So things like that, basically like examples of the how your day can look like. And then, of course, recruitment. Think of recruitment that is a classical example would be that you will see educational requirements, and then you will see a list of frameworks, method, and tools that architect needs to know in order to apply for this job. So I suggest that you get a little bit more flexible regarding educational requirements, and I will get back to this why. And also when it comes to frameworks and tools that you would like to put in the requirements list, I recommend to switch more to talents and skills, because any frameworks or methods or tools, they can be learned within a couple of weeks, and it's just a simple practical course. If you have a suitable background, if you have been working within IT development for some time, you can learn almost any framework or tool. But it's important that you have interest and skills that are related to the area. So that has to do more with more high-level requirements. So that's my recommendation as well. And there is also a very interesting study. I've shared a link here, not to go into detail, but how can you adjust your job announce formulation in order to attract more female applicants. This study has been performed by one consultancy firm in Sweden, and it's basically a very interesting result that they've discovered on how much more female applicants they got if they just twisted the language of the job ad a little bit. So please have a look at this one later. And back to the educational requirements. So I have performed a short, very basic survey with the architects that I had in my network last year, just to see what kind of educational background they have. And you can see actually that there are a lot of areas that are represented among people who work today as architects, business architect or enterprise architect. So, for example, engineering, physics, business administration, economics. Basically, it has quite a broad range of areas. And that's why I suggest that you don't really need to emphasize the educational background and requirements in the job ad. Great. The second aspect was communication and branding of the architect roles. And my recommendations is to go with positive, engaging, and relatable. Basically, using the language that is understood by a large general audience rather than architects who are working as architects for 20 years. And well, my favorite examples are, of course, some of the terms that I often use at work with colleagues: governance, guardrails, meta model. But I try to stay away from those terms when I, for example, meet university students and talk about my role. So, what do I do as a business architect? So, try to stay away from those terms, even though those are very useful in the architectural discussions. It's maybe not so engaging or relatable when you want to include larger audience. So basically, when you advertise architectural position to existing talents within the field. And here you can see some examples on how to describe your role in the engaging way. So what do you do at work is I connect the dots, I clarify different regulations and how they affect the business. My favorite one was also suggested by a person, by the architect in my network. I draw boxes and connect them with lines. That's the one that I like the most. So basically, when you need to describe the role to general audience and think of recruitment as a general audience, try to use at least some of the high-level statements before you go into describing the specific skills. And last but not least is, of course, to make sure that in the team you have diversity and inclusion awareness and training being in place. So making sure that if you have new people joining the team and you are working on the diversity and inclusion in the recruitment, when they join the team, that there is a feeling of belonging and there is a efficiency in how team is communicating and how different ideas are embraced. So that's a very important aspect as well. Great, thank you. I think I'm done with
Yes, perfect timing there,
what
Julia.
I wanted to present.
Okay. Wonderful. We have some questions that have come in.
Yes.
So we've got a couple of minutes. So the first one is from Fabio. Thanks, Julia. What are your thoughts on the impact of the Trump administration push to quash all DEI efforts, programs, etc., in public and private entities? I live in Ireland, and I know that some US companies have already retired their DEI programs, also here, not just in the US offices.
Oh. Yeah. Well, great question on the socially political climate. Well, I believe in the power of research and numbers. So I think that's something that we should use. And I hope that it will be used in order to make sure and handle the changes in the social political situation.
Okay. All right. Time for one more. This one here from Cheryl. My impression is an architecture team includes highly established IT professionals. As women, historically, we have had low representation in IT. Could it be we lack a resource pool? My own career has involved a large break for family care, which impacted my perceived years of experience. Also, my employer focused strongly on flexibility, which helped me return to work.
Mm-hmm. Great question. Yes, and absolutely, I agree that the pool of IT professionals who are women is slightly smaller than for men. On the same time, we do have architects, we do have other IT professionals who are women, especially today. So, and also very important point that is related to how you brand this role for the younger generation, I think. Because that's where we will have more architects hopefully joining the field later on. So, and that's why I think it's very important for female architects to be speakers, to be role models, to go to your university you graduated from and tell about your role, what you do every day, what was the most interesting case that you have been focusing on recently. So basically telling how fun it is to work with architecture.
Okay, wonderful. All right, time for one more here from Josef. What a coincidence. I also draw boxes and connect them with lines. Smiley face. My question is, how would you help people who maybe are a good fit for their first architecture role, but lack the confidence to make the leap? Oh, you've just gone on mute. Yeah. How that happened? Oh, no. That's very strange. Maybe the... That's very strange. Never had that happen mid-answer before. Are you still hearing me okay? Yeah? Okay. Maybe if you click on the device settings, it might have just changed the microphone for some reason. No, it's not. Okay. That is very strange. Do you have another application open that could have just started trying to access the microphone? No? Okay. Anyways, we are 5 minutes over now, so apologies for that little mix up at the end. Josef, apologies, won't get an answer to your question. But yeah, a big thank you to Julia for a really interesting and inspiring session. So thank you for joining us today. For everyone else, the next session will be starting very shortly in the sessions area. See you there. And thanks again, Julia. Ciao, ciao.